Morning everybody. Well, this is week 5 of lockdown and I thought I will continue this little pattern of videos just for quite simple projects. If you want to join in then you can, and obviously just watch them if not. So these videos are aimed at the ladies who are missing all my regular classes, but anyone's welcome to watch and have a go. So I've had a little request for somebody asking to explain 9-patch disappearing 9-patch blocks. So there are so many variations of this, from fairly simple things to quite complex. So I thought I'll show you a couple of variations. There's loads out there on the different websites. Have a look on Pinterest. Obviously there's loads of free patterns as well. It's quite a traditional block, but it can be made as interesting, as complex as you want. So I'm going to show you something that I've prepared here. I'm going to show you an easy way to cut out, and I'm also going to show you this quilt that I'm working on at the moment, and this is being designed by a friend of mine, Jane, who is Plain Creations, and you can find her shop on Etsy, and the pattern for this quilt is available, and that's the whole thing, which looks really complex, but it all starts off with 4 9-inch blocks. It's 9-inch squares joined together, and it's how we cut them up and rearrange them. So you might have seen this on my website anyway, these photographs. So it's not quite finished, but it's nearly there. So a basic 9-patch block. I hope you can see this. I have actually cut this, so I'm not holding it up. So we've got 3 rows of 3, so it's 9 patches. Now each of these squares are 6 inches, but they can be whatever you want them to start at, and obviously the more cuts you do, the more it will shrink down. So if you want it to fit a particular block size, or you're going to add it into something else, then you might start with smaller squares, or you might even start with larger squares. It really doesn't matter, it's just the technique. So what we've done is I've sewn a row of 3, another row of 3, another row of 3, and join those all together. And where the intersections are, it's really important to get those points to match, because once we start chopping it up. Now I would use a small stitch for this, so usually the default stitch when you set your machine on is 2.2. Keep it to that, because sometimes there's quite a lot of chopping up, so you don't want seams to be unravelling. And all I did with this one is I folded it into quarters, so the middle of the width and the middle of the length, and all I've done is chop it across there. Now those of you that have done the Winter Lilies quilt, the Nicola Dodds quilt, imagine this was a similar idea, where you've made a large log cabin block, sorry, mental block there, a log cabin block, and cut it into quarters. So it's the same idea, that you've got one big block and all we've done is cut it exactly through the middle, and then you start to play with it. So if I turn the one that's closest to you, I'm not sure you're going to be able to see this one as well as I would like. I'll pull it closer this way. So we've already created a different pattern. So all I did is rotate those 2 corner blocks. These 2 stayed exactly the same, and we get a different effect. Now what you could do at this stage is sew 2 together, 2 together, sew 4 together, obviously make sure that intersection meets. That might be it, and then make some more, and as long as you rotate them in the same place, when you add the next blocks together, a secondary pattern will start to form. Or what you might want to do is, when you've joined those all together, so not before you've joined them, sew those all back together, and you might decide to do a cut somewhere else. So you might take a slice off here and a slice off here, which is what happened with this one. So we had 4 big blocks, and we've cut some that are wider and some that are narrower, and that's done on a second cut. So the most simple one is just to rotate a couple of the blocks and you get a different effect. Now you could play with it until you decide that you like the arrangement, and just keep doing whatever you want with it. It's your design. So there's thousands and thousands of variations of this one. So just keep playing with that. Now, just want to show you another block. So this is just a 4-patch block. So again, I've just cut them from scrap fabric. They're just 6-inch squares. But you might have a charm pack that you want to use, or you've just got scrap fabric and you're using them up. So what I've done with this one is I've joined them again across the centre, and I've pressed the seams so that they're all nice and flat and they're sitting together. And then what I did with this, because if I cut across the middles, I'd just be cutting them back open again. So this time I've drawn a line 1 3/4 inches from that centre line, and I'm just going to chop this now. So this is an even simpler block to do. So I'm just lining up there. Now, if you were just making a cushion cover, you might just want to make 1 block. So you can play with it. But if you wanted to make this into a scrappy quilt, then keep the dimensions of where you do the cuts the same, but you might use different blocks of fabric. So what I've done now is I've just rotated the pieces round, because obviously I can't get up and turn around. That'll make the video look a bit strange. And I've cut one and a quarter inches from each of the corners. So you can see from the centre I've come out the same distance on each one. And then the fun starts. So I might rotate that centrepiece. I might swap those over. I might swap those over. And I've got a whole new block. So again, what you do is put them back together, 3, 3, 3, join those onto there, and those onto there. In fact, I don't like that one like that. I'll turn that one that way, and they're opposite. And that's another really easy 9-patch block. So there's no rules for this, just have a play. But if you do all the blocks using the same diameters and dimensions of where you're cutting, then that will work. And that's what happened with this quilt, because all of the blocks were cut in the same way, although using different fabrics, and when they go together it creates a secondary pattern. So have a go, take some photographs, play. Okay, see you soon.